weren't playing. What kind of role did your brother play too in that, and the support that you received from him?
Man, when I got removed from the team, when I got removed from the team, I got my scholarship took, so I was actually staying with my brother. I was in his room in his house, kind of like two brothers growing up living in the same room. So in terms of rent, I wasn't paying rent. In terms of food, he was helping me with food. So I was literally living off him for quite a while down there, and he was my lifeline. And that being said, every single day I was trying to do the right things. And he went into the coach's office and actually talked to numerous coaches and numerous people in the Cincinnati staff to try and give me another chance to be on the team. And I'm forever in debt to this guy for putting his name, our name, just putting his honor on the line to give me another chance. And so when I say I owe it all to him, I do.
Travis, earlier to a question you said not put your team in the same position you did last time you were in the Super Bowl. What do you mean by that? And is that something that's obviously stuck with you for the past couple of years?
I mean, through every single game, you're going to have those ups and downs, and unfortunately, we had a lot of challenges early on, and I don't think I handled it the best as a leader in terms of stepping up to the plate, helping control the mindset, making a big time play to spark some energy, to spark that momentum. There were a few plays early on there that I just didn't feel like I did my job, and then on the sideline, in terms of the energy and the motive and the demeanor of the team, that's where I really think I could help out as well.
Last question in the back.
Travis, we saw what happened in the NFC Championship game when this 49ers season gets derailed because of injuries at the quarterback position. People have talked about the possibility of you having to be emergency quarterback. What about Blake Bell? Who's the better quarterback in that room?
I'm going to say Blake Bell by a landslide, man. He's actually gone in a college game, and I believe it was Oklahoma versus Oklahoma State, I think. He went down there a 2-minute drive or something like that. I've seen a little bit of the highlights, and I've seen him play. And just throwing it around on the field. Yeah, I'm taking Blake Bell over me for sure.
Thank you.
Have a good one, guys.
When you get in the playoffs, that combination right there, the O-lines versus the D-lines on both teams, ends up being kind of the thing that wins or loses games. So, and it's magnified every level that you go up, every step that you move up in the playoffs. And so the Super Bowl, it'll be magnified at the most between those two. And normally, who wins that battle ends up winning the game. And so that's what you'll see. I'm sure that'll be the same way in this game as it is in most Super Bowls.
Coach, a bit of piggyback off that question, but obviously protection issues were the issue from the last Super Bowl for you guys. Can you just talk about how your group, that front five, has evolved, specifically the impact that Creed has had on it in 2 years?
Yeah, protection ends up being the issue. You want to be able to have a mix of things in there that you can do. You get into those, if you get behind and you have to throw the ball every down, that's never good. And again, they've got that good defensive front. And then Creed has helped us in the middle as our center, and he's a smart kid. He's big, he's athletic.
Hey, good morning from bright, sunshiny Arizona, and welcome to SportsBeat Live. This is the show where we talk Kansas City Chiefs with you and the folks in the media who know them best, and those are the columnists and beat writers for the Kansas City Star. Please join in the conversation with us as the Chiefs countdown to Super Bowl 57. We're 3 days away. Game is, or 2 days away, right? So game is Sunday afternoon, 5:30 kickoff in Glendale, Arizona. So we have Herbie Teope. I can look to my right, and I see Herbie outside in the shade. Hey, Herbie. There's Jesse Newell. I look to my left, and there's Jesse Newell in the sunshine. Herbie's in the shade, and Sam McDowell is upstairs in the home. And Vahe Gregorian is trying to figure out the best way to join us here at the headquarters for the Kansas City Star here in Arizona. So, hey, some of you have already joined us, I know, from your comments. Great to hear from Anthony and Marilyn and Donna, Stacy. Appreciate it. We'll talk to everybody who's got a question for us as we talk about the Chiefs and Eagles game on Sunday. Really looking forward to it. Herbie, let's get us going. You wrote the story, and just a few hours ago, less than 15 hours ago, Patrick Mahomes was named the most valuable player for the second time in his career. He was not there at the presentation ceremony to accept the award, but that's pretty typical, isn't it, for a player who's participating in the Super Bowl not to be on site?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Most teams that are playing in the Super Bowl, if any of those players win an award or being recognized at the NFL Honor Show, typically they don't show up, and that's pretty standard because coaches don't want to mess up with the schedule. You've got team meetings; they just came off the practice field. They want to keep them in a certain routine. So that worked out well. But Patrick Mahomes probably, winning the worst kept secret in the National Football League. It was pretty clear he was the MVP. This is a panel voted by 50 Associated Press voters, and they're all pro team. Pretty much was a preview of what the award ceremony would be like, and it pretty much stayed the course.
Yeah. So what's the success rate in the Super Bowl of quarterbacks that win the MVP? It's really good, right?
Yeah. Hopefully Mahomes can burst that streak there for all the Chiefs fans out there. But of the 9 last quarterbacks who won the MVP award, they are 0-9 in the Super Bowl. So there's a little side story going there.
The other side story, Blair, is that Kurt Warner was the last to do it, right? And he's the one who presented the award. So maybe there's a little baton handing there.
Yep. Warner for the Rams in 99 and the St. Louis Rams in 99. And of course, they went out and won the Super Bowl in the next couple of days. So, hey, Jack, great to hear from you. We will get to that question for sure. Carl Cheffers, of course, doing the call on the game, the referee, and Chiefs fans certainly raised eyebrows when they found out that Carl Cheffers was on the Super Bowl crew for this game. So, hey, Herbie, let's also while we're talking, let's get the injury update. We won't get another one, I don't think, until the game, unless there's one today. But I don't know that to be the case. What's the latest about availability for Chiefs on Sunday?
Yeah, the media availability stopped for us on Thursday, but the Chiefs will be required to issue an injury update on Friday, today, obviously. So, look, Kadarius Toney was the guy that we were watching coming into this game. L'Jarius Sneed with a concussion. Toney practiced fully on Thursday, so he's on track to make his return after he suffered the injury in the AFC Championship game. The one that we're going to really watch on today's injury report is cornerback L'Jarius Sneed. He was not on that injury report on Wednesday, but suddenly he popped up on Thursday, limited practice with a knee injury. So we'll see what he does today. Andy Reid, we'll see what he does. And that's exactly what we're going to end up doing. That injury report will come out in the afternoon. Other than that, they're relatively healthy. Patrick Mahomes, obviously that ankle, everybody's asking about that throughout this media week. And he says he's in a good spot. Andy Reid said there's no issue with any of his mobility. And he's going to need that, obviously, against that Eagles defensive front. But other than that, the Chiefs are looking pretty good.
Vahe, you've gotten some fan feedback about maybe a little bit of sniffles going through the team. We've been with the team every day. This will be the first day that we haven't interviewed Chiefs players, and the only player I saw that was having a kind of a looked like a little under the weather was Chris Jones. Of course, not insignificant, Chris Jones. But I asked him point blank how he was feeling and said, "Look, he's fine. It's the change in the desert air, I guess, and the really dry air of Arizona is affected him. He had the sniffles and a little bit of watery eye, but I haven't heard of anything going through the team or any kind of illness. Have you guys picked up on that this week?"
I haven't, and the sort of the peak time when I got some of that feedback was. I think yesterday morning or whatever the morning was where Travis Kelce was one of the first up at the podium, and Travis had his voice just sounded like a little, what I like to call morning heavy. And and certainly Andy Reid's voice sounds like the voice of a guy who slept 3 or 4 hours, but we've certainly seen no evidence of that. And Herbie, Sam, and Jesse, all you guys can speak better to this than I can, but I think if there were notable illnesses, I suppose it would be obligatory to have on the injury report in some way, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. If there were any illnesses that affect their practices, it would have to be listed on the injury report. And so far, we've seen nothing of that sort. The only addition yesterday, again, was L'Jarius Sneed with the knee injury. So we'll see what happens here on Friday.
Yeah, and Blair, I mean, Chris Jones told me yesterday he's sick. He's got a sore throat. I think he said he did think it was because of the weather down here. But I did talk to an offensive lineman as well that did say there's a handful of guys who have something similar this week.
Okay, and I guess we'll get one more practice update from each team, from the Eagles and the Chiefs, and I suspect that would be part of it if it was significant enough. If some player missed practice because of it, it would be recorded. So just be on alert for that later in the day, sometime in the probably late afternoon today. So. Like I said, coaches and players, they've finished their media obligations, and now it's on to just the game, really. And I have enjoyed covering this Super Bowl because of some of the terrific storylines that we've all written about. It's the Andy Reid Bowl, having coached both teams, the Travis Kelce, Jason Kelce angle on this. I think both players and Donna, the mother, have been very entertaining, speaking about the roles of the Kelce brothers and the relationship between them, and first black quarterbacks facing off in the Super Bowl with Jalen Hurts and Mahomes. A lot of great stuff this week, and I've enjoyed reading about it. But let's cut to the chase and talk about the game, and what are some of the factors that could turn the game either way. Jesse, just to start off with a general feeling about this matchup, and what kind of details should we be considering as the game approaches?
Yeah, a couple things. And I put this in the game prediction that's out there at the start. People want to check it out, but with the way these teams are set up, the salary cap, where they spend their resources, I kind of see this in two different ways. I think roster spots 2 to 53, you give the advantage to the Eagles, and that's because they have a quarterback on this rookie contract, and you can put resources other places. Obviously, Roseman, the GM, has done a great job of building that thing, but that's the advantage the Eagles have. They have a great offensive line, great defensive line. Their secondary's been better this year. They have interchangeable running backs, and obviously Jalen Hurts presents some problems when he's fully healthy. The problem I think the Eagles have is they don't have the best player on the field, and that's Patrick Mahomes. And Jalen Hurts, with his shoulder injury, has seemed more hurt than what Mahomes has seemed like with his high ankle deal that he's dealing with here the last 3 weeks. So this to me seems like a Mahomes game. This seems like the Chiefs would not trade it. They want the best player in the world on their team. They've got it, but he is going to have to lift them because, as Herbie mentioned before, this defensive line, the pass rush for the Eagles is the best in the NFL. The Chiefs are likely at some point going to face some issues with that, just because every team that's basically the Eagles has basically had those issues. So that's number one, I think. And number two for the Chiefs is trying to be able to go in there and defensively be able to get some pressure on Hurts and force them into some passing downs, because he hasn't thrown the ball that well. If you look at his Pro Football Focus grades, Jalen Hurts the last 3 weeks, they're way down compared to what he was before that shoulder injury. So if they can get them into passing downs, I like the Chiefs' chances defensively. The problem is that Jalen Hurts provides a run option, and the Eagles can run it pretty well. And so we've seen the Chiefs so often the last couple weeks go to 5 defensive backs, 6 defensive backs. If you're trying to stop the run, you can't do that. So there'll be kind of that cat and mouse game. If the Eagles can run the ball, the Chiefs, it'll be tough to stop them defensively. If the Chiefs stop that run, get them into passing downs, I like the Chiefs' chances. So I think it's kind of this dual thing here, but a lot on Patrick Mahomes' shoulders and on his ankles too. I think we're going to see that in the Super Bowl 57.
I really have loved what the Chiefs have been doing defensively for the last 6 weeks or so of the regular season, and then through the playoffs, and especially in the Bengals AFC title game. It reminds me a little bit of what occurred in the Super Bowl 54 season, when it took a while. That was the first year that Steve Spagnuolo was the coordinator, and it took him a while to get used to the switch from a 3-4 to a 4-3, and just getting used to some new personnel. And by the end of the season, that defense was just rock solid, and was a big reason that the Chiefs were able to come back in the fourth quarter of that Super Bowl. So, Sam, do you have a good sense about where this defense is right now, and can it stop basically a record-setting rushing attack by the Eagles this year, at least when it comes to rushing touchdowns?
Yeah, it's a different sort of offense than they faced recently because of the way the Eagles try and move the ball. They pull their linemen, I think, more than any other team in the league. A lot of their stuff is triple option stuff, RPO options. So the Chiefs are going to have to be a lot more disciplined. It's when you're facing Joe Burrow, I think we all thought the pass rush and the defensive line was going to be the key to the game. I think we were all proven right about that with the way the Chiefs got to Burrow. This time you're going to have to be a little bit more careful about just trying to tee off on the quarterback because of his mobility. So it's a little bit hard to predict because it's trying to get into the minds of the players and their ability to read the tells of what the Eagles are trying to do. I do think that has long been one of Frank Clark's biggest strengths for the polarizing 3 years he's had here as far as his production on the field. I think his biggest strength has been that discipline at edge. And so I think that should favor the Chiefs a little bit, but it's the sort of thing where everyone involved in your front seven has to be that way. I think, we saw L'Jarius Sneed pop up on the injury report yesterday with a knee. My understanding from people I've talked to is they do anticipate he'll play, but he's really a key guy for the Chiefs defense, I think, this week, because a lot of what the Eagles option stuff does is try and, like I mentioned, pulling the lineman. It tries to get around the edge. And L'Jarius Sneed has been terrific in his role at not only covering the slot, but also helping out in the run defense. We saw him, the plan last week against the Bengals was to put him just on Jamar Chase. Now that plan was derailed early in the game when he went out. I don't think we'll see L'Jarius Sneed's shadow receiver because it would take him out of that role of the slot cornerback where he could help with what's the Eagles' biggest strength.
The RPO that the Eagles run and is pretty effective, and it does cause some hesitation on the defense, especially from the defensive end. Frank Clark or George Karlaftis will be in the spotlight. Even Nick Bolton as well. That's what we talk about, the run pass option. It's the option that causes just a slight hesitation defensively that that the offense and a quarterback as good as Jalen Hurts can take advantage of. And Jesse, I think you mentioned it earlier. One storyline that may be getting a little underplayed this week is the health of Jalen Hurts. I think Mahomes, with his ankle injury, there's no reason to, especially the way he played against the Bengals, no reason to believe he'll be limited. But I'm not so sure about Jalen Hurts. Now, the Eagles had the advantage of playing a 49ers team in the NFC title game where their quarterback situation was just an absolute wreck. because of injuries, and that they handled the Giants pretty easily the week before. I'm not sure if we saw a complete Eagles offensive, game plan rolled out for by them, but I wonder a little bit about Jalen Hurts' health with that shoulder and how that might impact them and what they can do in this game. Has anybody picked up on chatter about Hurts' health this week?
I think it's sort of hard to. I think it's sort of hard to. I'll get you. I'll throw it to you Vahe here in a second. I think it's sort of hard to, just because these guys. It's sort of like Mahomes. It's trying to get information on his ankle. He's going to say he's fine. He's going to play. He's played through it, and that's that. I think you sort of have to judge by the production. And when I was looking it up for the prediction this week, you look at like the Pro Football Focus grades for quarterbacks, and the 14 of the first 15 weeks, Jalen Hurts had a score of 68 or better. So again, that's why he was in the MVP conversation for a long, long time. After he's come back, his score, each of those games has been under 66. So again, he's going to say he's out there, he's trying to be a warrior, all those sorts of things, but we've seen a different level of player. And if they can't open things up offensively to throw the ball downfield, like to A.J. Brown, they had that big long completion against the 49ers. Actually probably shouldn't have been a completion. It looked like it hit the turf, but you can take that one out and the production goes down even farther. So I think it's going to be hard to get a true indication. You sort of have to go based off of what you've seen and the stats and the numbers and the grades. And honestly, those grades have not been impressive from Jalen Hurts in the last 3 weeks. He's going to try to grind through, but that's why I think the stopping the run is so important, because if you force the Eagles into doing that, you might get a Hurts that he has not been for the course of the majority of the season.
Blair, the Eagles are the best team in the NFL on opening drives this year. And I've never thought going into a Chiefs game that the first quarter would be more important. And I say never in the past because the Chiefs are terrific at coming back in games. But if you can get the Eagles out of their run offense and make Jalen Hurts throw the ball, I think you've got a significant advantage in this game. If you get behind early and suddenly the Eagles running game is dictating the tempo and the pace of the game on Sunday, I think you're in trouble. And, I think the Eagles are at like 4 points per opening drive this year. It's an outrageous number. It's lapping the field in the NFL this year, the same way the Chiefs did a year ago. And so, like I said, I think it's the game's not going to be won or lost on the opening drive, but a 2-score game or something of that sort in the opening quarter, I think would be more difficult to overcome than it would be in a typical football game.
Just to piggyback off that, Sam, the Chiefs have had so much success lately with their dime package, and that's where they brought these blitzes. They get, Nick Bolton acting like he's going to blitz, and all of a sudden Chris Jones gets a one-on-one matchup, or they've got L'Jarius Sneed come from one side, or Jalen Watson, or Justin Reed. This is where Spags sort of gets into his bag, where he gets all creative with this stuff. But you can't put 6 defensive backs out there if the Eagles can run the ball. So if the Eagles can run the ball, you got to put Leo Chanel out there. So this is kind of one of those cat and mouse games with the NFL, where in basketball, you put your 5 best players on the court. It doesn't matter what the other team does. You just keep your 5 best players out there. In football, it doesn't work that way. If the other team's running on you, you got to put bigger bodies out there. You got to put Lily Gay out there. You got to put Leo Chanel out there. So the Chiefs have gone so much to their dime package lately and gotten so much pressure out of it. If they're forced out of that because the Eagles can run, again, we're going to see a different team and different people out there for the Chiefs trying to stop this Eagles offense.
Herbie, and you've reminded us that Hurts has not shown up on the injury report this week, right? Yeah. If he was slowed at all, he'd have to be on there. Is that how that works?
Yeah. So that means he's putting in full practices. The fact that he's not listed on the injury report is a sign that the Eagles feel that he is healthy and he's taking full repetitions.
The other thing about the Eagles is something they do often and do well is convert fourth downs. And when you a pretty key factor for keeping drives alive. I don't know what their percentage is, but don't they convert more? Don't they lead the NFL in fourth down conversions? Maybe total number, and I don't know where the percentage is, though, the success rate.
They're second. I think over Jalen Hurts' career, they're like 24 out of 26 on the quarterback sneak. They've like mastered the quarterback sneak. They're second in conversions. They're fourth in attempts. And listen, a team that's 14-3 should not be fourth in attempts in the league because they're rarely trailing in a game. For example, the Chiefs are second fewest in attempts this year with the identical record. Nick Sirianni leads Football Outsiders' aggressiveness index as far as how frequently he goes for it on fourth downs. Nick Sirianni also leads the NFL in in-game decisions and how many expected points that's added to their team's total this year. The Eagles have set a record by the amount of points they've generated off of drives in which they went for it on fourth down earlier in the drive. This is a game where I think Andy Reid is the best game player in the NFL. I think the Chiefs are winning these 2 weeks right now. As we're talking right now, the Chiefs are gaining an edge. I think Nick Sirianni gains an edge in those Super Bowl. So what, 4 hours and 15 minutes of the game itself on Sunday. So that's going to be a really interesting battle because I anticipate that a lot of coaches, new hires of coaches, are going to be following more of the Nick Sirianni path in game than coaches that are going to be following the Andy Reid path in game.
Interesting. So what did I wanted to mention another statistical truth about this game is at the end, the Chiefs have the league's number one offense, right? And it's been good enough to give them the AFC's top record, make them the top seed. And the other thing I noticed is in the playoffs, the two playoff victories, they haven't trailed. Now, that's probably true of the Eagles. I didn't check their box scores, but they won them 31-7 and 38-7. But the Chiefs have won 2 one-possession games, and they haven't trailed in either one of them, which says to me that they're pretty locked. They've been pretty locked in and focused. And again, as I mentioned earlier, I think the Chiefs defense has been playing so well here. They didn't get to 30 in either one of these games, and we all think of the Chiefs as a team that could and sometimes need to outscore opponents, and that hasn't really been the case in the playoffs. They've just played. They've played two good teams, a really hot team in the Jacksonville Jaguars, and of course the Bengals are their nemesis, and they were able to survive both of those games. So John asks why all the hype on the Eagles. They've only played two good quarterbacks and gave up 30 and 40 points to them. Chiefs are more battle tested. Is that right? Is it just playing against AFC teams and AFC quarterbacks it makes the Chiefs a little more battle tested than the Eagles have been?
Well, it's funny. On one hand, Blair, the part of the battle-tested appearance of the Chiefs is that they played a lot of close games during the season, some of which included, just eking past some bad teams, right? Now, how much, I know we all thought about those things a little bit in real time, and I'll speak for myself, kind of go back and forth between, boy, they're vulnerable versus, they're playing with their food, and they're fine. It's just they get a little bored when they're so much better. And I do think, though, over time, when you also include the point about what's happened in the postseason, it does do something for a collective psyche that at least you believe that when it comes down to the grinding crucible in the end, that you've got the goods. And I know I don't want to make too much of the psychological mumbo jumbo, but I think that's a little edge for the Chiefs, just as Sam's point about the way real-time things might appear to be an edge for the Eagles is I think also valid. So many games within the game on this point.
I noticed that. Go ahead.
What's interesting is that we talked so much before the season about how difficult this Chiefs schedule was, and it's probably a lesson for all of us because the Chiefs wound up with like the fourth easiest schedule in the NFL this year. The teams that were supposed to be really good on their schedule, like the Rams, the Broncos, everybody in the division, flopped. And so the Chiefs actually did not play a difficult schedule themselves. But the Eagles defense saw the second easiest schedule in the league. And against the teams that actually had quality offenses, and when I say quality, I mean the best offenses the Eagles faced this year were teams like the Lions, the Jaguars, the Packers. I mean, they didn't face Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes. So I think it's a really interesting test for the Eagles because usually 19 games into a season, you know a lot of what you are. I think we're still a little blinded by what is the Eagles defense. Have they been teeing off against underperforming offenses, which look is what good defenses do? Have they struggled against the better offenses, which again is what most teams do? It's why they're better offenses. So I think the Eagles defense is a little tough to figure out, but undoubtedly this is the toughest test that they've seen all year.
Yeah, I think we can see this two ways. Obviously, the smartest of the smart people out there are betting on this game, and it'll probably be the most bet game in America this year, and they have the Eagles as 1.5 point favorites. So I think we know enough about the Eagles to say that their defense is good. I still like the counterpoint here, and it's something, we talk about all the time, which is if you have a good pass defense that goes up against a good pass offense and both teams are playing well, the pass offense wins. And that's where the Chiefs have the advantage, right? They've got Patrick Mahomes. They have this offense. They have Andy Reid. That's why they win so many games. They have a great pass offense. So I think both of these can kind of be true. The Eagles are not frauds. They're not. I mean, they wouldn't be favored in this game if they were frauds. But at the same time, are there questions about how this pass defense can perform against a really good offense like the Chiefs, especially if that offense is clicking like we've seen the Chiefs do at times this year? I think that's a very valid question.
Hey, Blair, can I just throw in a quirky little stat that's a little skewed by the postseason matchups? But the Eagles and Chiefs have each scored exactly 546 points this season, if you count the postseason games. And again, that's a little skewed, but to me also it's a little indicative of why we think this is going to be close in the end too. The capacities they have on both sides of the ball, and of course all the cat and mouse stuff we're talking about.
If you're a Chiefs fan, what should give you the most optimism is the last time the Chiefs faced a really, really good pass rush was in San Francisco, and Andy Reid had the game plan of his life against the 49ers. I do think that these types of teams with quick hitting edge pass rushes are difficult matchups for anybody, but Andy Reid probably puts in the best game plans against anybody. And the Bengals didn't have that last week, but Andy Reid still had to implement that sort of game plan because he had to be overly cautious that Patrick Mahomes didn't want to leave the pocket and he had to get rid of the ball quickly. It's sort of been the adjustment that Patrick Mahomes has made all season. I don't think the Chiefs would fear this pass rush as much as they did in 2019 when they faced a really stout 49ers pass rush because of the way they have adjusted their offense in those last 3 years since.
The only thing I'll add onto that, Sam, is that McCole Hardman went wild in that game against the 49ers. He's not going to be available. It sounds like Kadarius Toney will be available based off these practice reports. They sort of need him because the gap in that sort of gadget-type player role, the end-arounds, the pop passes between Kadarius and sort of what Sky Moore has given them so far, I think that's pretty significant. So if Kadarius can run those sorts of plays, Andy could probably still, have his cake and eat it too. But McCole was a huge factor in that particular game. Like you said, a lot of it's because of the scheming of Andy Reid.
Herbie, you've covered every Chiefs playoff game since the Super Bowl 54 season. And this is the first time, even going back to 2018, that Mahomes is an underdog. And in fact, the fact that the Chiefs have been a favorite in every playoff game since the loss to New England in 2015. So 16, 17, when Alex Smith was the quarterback, and every game that Mahomes has been the quarterback, the Chiefs have been the betting favorite until this Super Bowl. I can't help but think that Patrick Mahomes knows this, and the Chiefs know it, and whatever little psychological game they want to play, they can apply it here because the world thinks the Philadelphia Eagles are a better team than the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird that it's coming down to that. Mahomes just won the MVP. We all knew he was going to win it, and they're kind of just discounting that. But to me, we talked about a lot of the keys to this game. This Super Bowl, I'm not looking at the San Francisco game. I'm looking at the Tampa Bay game. That's what this game has to feel like. This game will be won in the trenches. This ain't going to be won on the outside. It's not going to be won with the tricky plays. It's going to be won in the trenches because of what the Eagles can do. When they faced Tampa Bay a couple of years ago, you had Shaq Barrett, Devin White, and JPP. Those were the three primary pass rushers. You got to work, and all these guys have double-digit sacks, and they're going to be able to get to the quarterback. So this offensive line for the Chiefs, they're going to have to really step up their A game on Sunday.
Which Tampa Bay game, Herbie? Because that's kind of a key question.
The Super
here.
Bowl. The Super Bowl.
Yeah, I talked to some players about that night and how miserable they felt afterwards. But against Tampa Bay this year, pretty good night, and that's another one of my little quirky stats. If I give you the opponent, you tell me which of these opponents this year really gave the Chiefs a hard time among the Arizona Cardinals, the 49ers, the Bucks, the LA Rams, and the Seattle Seahawks. Some games were closer than others. Some games felt closer than others. The Chiefs won all those by at least 14 points. And what they have in common, they're all in the NFC, right? And the Chiefs have is it a 14 or 15 game winning streak against NFC teams? And look, that anybody with the Chiefs and the Eagles will tell you that doesn't mean a thing, except the Chiefs don't play NFC teams every year or the same teams every year. There's they're not like playing the Broncos or the Bengals or the Bills, the teams the Chiefs play every year and sometimes twice a year. I think there is something to the familiarity of those teams. That helps me explain why Chiefs Broncos, Chiefs Texans, are games that are closer than they should be, and games against NFC teams the Chiefs seem to handle. I don't know if that applies here, but I think about that. And part of that streak is the Eagles game in the regular season last year where the Chiefs went to the Link and won pretty easily, as I recall. So I don't know. Is there anything to that, or is it just coincidental?
We are 12 days into this preparation for this game, Blair. So I think any possible stat that we can come up with just adds to the conversation.
Throw it out there. Just throw it out there. That's exactly right. So, all right. I think the Chiefs win the game. Does anybody feel like this is it goes the other way and the Eagles win? Jesse had to make the official projection.
Go ahead, Jess.
So I think it's a tough one to pick. I can see why you would pick the Eagles. I definitely could see going a certain way where some of the things Herbie talked about come true. You know what I mean? The offensive defensive line start dominating, things like that happen. And I just, it's hard for me to get Mahomes out of the head because he's the best player and that position means so much. So I think it'll be close. I think it'll be a fun game. I think that's what most people are wanting in this, even casual fans that are watching this. But I've got the Chiefs 26-20. If you pick the Eagles, I would not be shocked or I would not be stunned. And I don't think that's a crazy pick, especially because that's what Vegas says right now, and people that are sports betting. But I could definitely see Mahomes putting a team on his back one more time and being the better quarterback, especially the better quarterback who's dealing with an injury in this particular game.
I just feel like – go ahead, Sam.
I've got the Chiefs. I actually think that you could see not a close game on Sunday. And usually when you say a team could win by 2 possessions, you've got an exact pick for which team. But because of what I described earlier, to where I think early in the first half might dictate the way the second half is played, I think you could see a team win by a couple possessions. And I think it's more likely that team's the Chiefs.
Really nothing further. I just think I'm going to be surprised and disappointed if it doesn't come down to the end. I think I want a game that's sort of befitting of all the great plot lines going into it.
There have been a lot of great storylines in this game and a lot of great stuff written by the fellows on the screen here. I can't tell them how much I've enjoyed the coverage from the Star and these guys right here. Vahe got into the Patrick Mahomes' background as he was being asked at every press conference this week about participating in the first Super Bowl between black quarterbacks and how he really wasn't pigeonholed as a non-quarterback just because of the different way that his career unfolded in high school, and great stuff. And Sam knocked it out of the park with his Travis Kelce story. And did you know that he was once a call center employee taking phone calls about trying to sell Obamacare in Ohio? And Jesse had a story this morning about why Noah Gray is something of a folk hero to a certain circle of people. It'll make you choke up. It's such a good story. And Herbie's been on it all week with the news and the coverage, and every day getting it done for us. So it's just been terrific, and it will continue to be that way over the next couple of days and through the Super Bowl in the print editions of the Kansas City Star, online at kansascity.com. And my favorite destination for reading all of this, the morning sports edition. It really is a terrific vehicle for that. I think it was 45 pages today, and should leave out everybody back home. The Star's blanketed coverage of this. If you haven't read the Patrick Mahomes story or seen the photo, you got to go get to that today on kansascity.com. So for the photographers and the folks in Kansas City, you're doing a great job. And for George Howard, our producer here, thank you very much for joining us. And we will talk to you after Super Bowl 57, about 5.5, 6 hours after the game. So join us then on Sunday evening, and appreciate you joining us today.